Gentlemen, we are about to kick off, so please take your seats for this much anticipated part of SO2. Of course, the big question of this year's SO2 is how has Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine changed the European Union and its role in the world? Are we seeing the birth of Europe, the emergence of a hard power? To answer those questions, I am delighted to be joined now here on stage by Josep Borrell, the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Vice President of the European Commission, the face of EU foreign affairs on the world stage. Welcome to Florence. We're also joined by Alexander Stubb. Alexander Stubb is, of course, the former Prime Minister of Finland, and he's the current Director of the School of Transnational Governance at the European University Institute here in Florence. So my first question. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine back on the 24th of February, the EU moved faster. Is this the start of a real geopolitical European Union?
That's what I said to the European Parliament. That's what I said to the European Parliament. This is the moment in which Europe is behaving.
Microphone.
I think it's quite clear that the Russian... Let's see if Josep's microphone works.
Say it again. In case you weren't awake, now you are awake.
It works. Now, that's the European Parliament. I think this is the moment in which the European Union behaves as a geopolitical actor, taking decisions also on the military side, using the language of power. I have powers. Many more than one people can believe. We are using them and European standards.
And the war was a wake-up call for the West. Was it a wake-up call for you, or did you see it coming?
Yeah, certainly. First of all, I think from a regulator or regulatory superpower to an actor. And it's really good to see how quickly it happened. You know, it was an actor in the Euro crisis, but it took a few years. During COVID, but it took a few months. When the war came, it actually took only a few days. And we were able to reverse a lot of things. Actually, with the leadership of Josep and of the Commission today is a geopolitical commission, just like they promised they would be.
And the same question to you, Josep Borrell. Did you see it coming? Did you see the war coming?
Not as Americans look very much aware. Remember when the war started, the day before, got a phone call saying it's going to happen this weekend. And it happened. And I was willing to believe. That this was not going to happen.
That it was going to stop with a frozen conflict, just like Georgia did or Crimea did. So on the 24th of February, we were all taken by surprise that it became a fully blown attack. But the news is that I think Putin was taken by surprise of actually how united the European Union and the United States and the West were in our response. I mean, the rollout of sanctions was tremendous. Provision of arms was tremendous, solidarity, the rest of it. And of course, now the rest is history.
And what about Moldova? Are you worried Moldova could be next? Are you concerned Moldova could be next?
The word concern, I don't like it a lot because we are always concerned about everything, but worried about what can happen in Moldova. It has been some explosions. There are Russian troops over. It's a possibility.
And Alexander Stubb, you mentioned the sanctions, the unity on the sanctions. But I guess the question now, of course, is will that unity last?
I think the foreseeable future, because we all understand that Europe will be divided into two. On one hand, you have Russia, which is aggressive, revisionist, imperialist, totalitarian and authoritarian. You have 40 European states, including Georgia, Ukraine and Moldova, which are democracies that want to cooperate. Now, the problem I think European leaders will have, including Borrell, is you have to explain the price of war, because unity and solidarity lasts for a while, but with inflation, with energy prices, with food prices, and with the asylum situation, and it's not going to last forever. So we're going to see a little bit of discrepancies, but of course it's Josep's job to keep the Foreign Affairs Council together, right?
Well, it's not an easy job, Josep Borrell, because we're seeing when EU Council is discussing the oil embargo, we're seeing cracks. And while we're all here in Florence, we heard Viktor Orban was on the radio this morning, the Hungarian Prime Minister, comparing this sanction package to an atomic bomb.
Atomic bomb?
Yes. So what would you say to him? And as your role as High Rep, what do you...
Look, the ambassadors are working at the report, at the Committee of Permanent Representatives. They were working yesterday. I think they will continue working in an agreement at the technical level. If it doesn't happen, next week, after the Day of Europe, I will have to call for a meeting of the Foreign Affairs Ministers to table what is going on, because one can discuss about how many years do you need in order to adapt to an oil embargo. But to link the oil that has nothing to do with it as the delivering of funding of the next generation apart from the political reasons, this is
unacceptable.
The fun thing here is that you are the journalist, you have to pose the difficult questions. Josep is the High Representative. He's the one who keeps the diplomatic balance. I'm just a humble professor. So my take is that I think the Hungarians are playing games. In other words, you know, they will eventually fall into place with a compromise. So we will have an embargo on oil. You have to understand that the foreign policy machinery, including the External Action Service, the diplomats, the ambassadors that Josep was referring to, they are the ones that construct this. So eventually we will get there, probably a little bit of an internal price to be paid for it. Do I like it? Do I like it? No. Do I think it will happen? Yes.
Alexander Stubb not mincing his words.
It's not for tomorrow, for the day after tomorrow.
And I will say that Russia...
Then what about a gas embargo? What would your position be on that, High Representative?
It's not for tomorrow, for the day after tomorrow.
And I will say that Russia will become fully and utterly isolated at the end of the day. That means that it'll be politically, financially, economically, that the European Union is working on, which we will eventually get there. The High Representative said, you have to take it one step at a time.
Okay, well, moving away, I suppose then, I'd like to ask you, are we in long war mode now? Is this latest sanction? I'd like to ask you, are we in long war mode now? Is this the West versus Russia? And what about the rest? What about China, India?
No. I don't like at all the East against Russia or the West against the rest. This is not an issue of the West. This is an issue about the Charter of Union. Is about the sovereignty of the people, of the states, the respect for the borders, not to use force. And this is something that should worry the West, the East, the North, and the South. And the vote in the United Nations was clear. But we have to insist that we are not fighting against Russia. We are defending Ukraine. And defending Ukraine means to defend the international order based on place. It will be the law of the jungle. It will be the stronger, you know what I mean? It's not the West, it's the whole world. It should be the whole world. But I know states, important states, are looking to the other side and for tactical reasons, has nothing to do with Ukraine, don't want really to engage on the... And we have to explain what is going on. I'm coming from Latin America to explain to my fellow and friends from Latin America what's going on. But today I've been reading the former president of Brazil, that worried me a lot.
And I think Josep is absolutely right. This is not about Russia versus the West. It's also about... And that's why you really need to look at the work of the High Representative of what he's been doing with shuttle diplomacy all around the world and phone calls in the past few months. And, you know, he's just back from Latin America. He met 20 Latin American foreign ministers to discuss the rule-based order. And this is what I call soft power or smart power. You try to convince by argument that what Russia is doing is wrong without pushing or forcing the others to take the same stand that you have. this is the best thing that we can do. Why, I think the High Representative has been doing exactly the right thing. This is how Europe projects power.
And meanwhile, the High Representative, you have been working on the strategic compass. Will that help when it comes to European security?
Yes. The war in Ukraine has positive collateral effects. Sorry for saying positive when so many countries being destroyed. But with this war, we would not be business as usual. Without this war of the energy dependency from Russia, business as usual. Without this war, we were not aware that Europe is in danger. As simple as this. Danger, we should be adult and prepared to face these dangers.
And one consequence, Alexander Stubb, is your country, Finland, will be joining. How soon? How fast is feasible?
Well, I think the President and the government will come out with their position next week on the 12th of April, and it's very likely the decision of intent to apply happens on the 15th and 16th of May. Then, of course, we enter a gray zone from the moment that we apply to the moment that I hope that we'll be members by the end of this year. And I think the decision actually on Finnish NATO membership was taken on the 24th of February when Putin attacked Ukraine. That's when reversed, and I think by the end of this month we'll have 80% of the Finnish population in favor of NATO membership. And I think it's a win-win situation for security in Sweden, Finland, the Baltics.
But what about the Kremlin? How do you think they will respond?
Well, the Kremlin will respond in three ways: hybrid, cyber and information. We're already seeing that, but I think the Finnish public is well prepared, so we're not extremely worried about this. On top of that, if I may, we have one of the largest standing armies in Europe with 900,000 in reserves, 280,000 that can be mobilized. Over 60 F-18s, just purchased 64 F-35s, plus the missile defense system. We're completely NATO compatible, and I don't think that really the Kremlin think Finland are outside the Western realm anyway.
So that's NATO enlargement. What about European Union enlargement? Could you see countries like Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia in the European Union?
I am unable to fix a date. Let's wait for the Commission work that has to present an opinion about how to proceed, adhesion demand of Ukraine and others. But don't forget, in the Balkans there are 6 states also waiting for membership.
Absolutely. Alexander Stubb, we heard from one historian here at the SOTU who said that the EU should try to be friends with its neighbours and not always make them one of us, quote, to him, to that.
Depends on who he means by friends. If it's about 40 European liberal democracies and states, my answer is yes, definitely. I'm a sad case. I wrote Flexible Integration back in 1999. The possibility that not everyone does everything at the same time. But I think enlargement has now become strategic, and it's become so the sooner we can have Western Balkan enlargement, the sooner we can have Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia in, the better. But let's be realistic, the system for this. I think Russia needs to become a friend at some stage, but it's too early to talk about that. The way in which Putin behaves, it's very difficult to be friends with a bully.
We have to Putin. We don't have anything against the Russian people. It's about one regime, one political system, one person. This is a person war. So yes, we want to weaken Putin, but we don't want to push the Russian people against the border of the history. One way or another, they have to be part in a peaceful security system in Europe.
And meanwhile, how should Europe position itself in a world where everything is weaponized?
Yes, everything is being weaponized. That's what we call the weaponization of interdependencies. You become dependent of someone, it uses it as a weapon against you. We have to be more autonomous. We have to have this kind of, let's say, strategic responsibility. It is unaffordable that when the pandemic came, we discovered that in Europe we were not producing a single gram, which is quite easy to produce. but it was much more cheaper to produce it somewhere else. Cheaper is one thing, and to have the possibility in a crisis, maybe it was cheaper yesterday, but it's unaffordable today.
Yeah, the reason I like the strategic compass, and I think it's probably one of the best foreign policy docs the European Union and the High Representative has produced, is that it outlines that if everything can be weaponized, information, energy, technology, even human beings, then actually the European Union has a lot of those instruments. So that's why we're becoming geopolitical, because if need be, we can use, for instance, sanctions as a weapon. So the fact everything is weaponized is not necessarily a bad thing for the European Union in the long run.
And since
about oil, one thing, everybody's talking about the ban on oil. There is other ways of putting problems to put in. Insurance. If we decide importation of Russian oil, insurance. If we decide that our insurance companies will not provide insurance importation of Russian oil, not even to Europe, everywhere in the world, it's going to be a big obstacle for the Russians to export their oil, not to Europe, but to the rest of it.
And since the Russian invasion back on the 24th of February, I have the feeling that diplomats in Brussels and staffers from the Commission and from the ES have hardly slept. My question is, how are you dealing with other business, with other threats around the world in the meantime?
We do. We do. We have to do, because the world doesn't stop with the Ukrainian war. But certainly these problems are on a second place. Who remembers about Afghanistan? Afghanistan. It was high in our agenda last August, and everybody was talking about the big humanitarian crisis of Afghanistan. It's still there. It's still there, and we take care of the page of the newspapers. Ethiopia, Sahel, Latin America, Afghanistan, these problems are still there, and we take care of them, even if today.
And Alexander Stubb, the war, unfortunately, will have massive global ramifications, food security, energy insecurity, long-term plan, or perhaps what should the long-term plan be?
Well, I have this vision that we need to start talking about the emerging world order, and this is linked to the quote about the West and the rest and the work that the High Representative is doing. I think we need to understand in Europe that not everyone is going to follow the exact same value base: liberal democracy, human rights, fundamental rights, rule of law and freedom. But what we need to drive is a rules-based system. And this is where I think the European Union said to the rest of the world. We have to understand that the rest of the world sees this war as our war, but it has the ramifications. So let's do dignified foreign policy and have a...
That's it.
Anything to add?
I cannot agree more. That's the important thing. A world based on rules. Because there is no rule, the rule of the stronger. And we have been building Europe as a jardin à la française, no? A French garden, well ordered. The rest of the world is more a jungle. And if we don't want the jungle to invade our garden, then we have to pay a price for it. We use the, but solidarity doesn't mean anything if there is not a price, if there is not a cost. I don't have to pay. But the moment to pay is the moment of truth. It's the ones who fight against Ukraine will have to understand that to defend freedom is the ones who fight against Ukraine will have with a cost. And the politicians should have the courage to explain that this cost has to be accepted, because otherwise the cost will be much bigger.
Okay. High Representative Josep Borrell, thank you so much. And Alexander Stubb, thank you so much to you both for joining us on the second day of SO2.
Finish? Finish? Very short, huh?
Yeah, the acoustics are not great.